Most of us excited to have a backyard pool, but for some homeowners, it reminds them of a contractor who left them deeper in debt than expected.
Yeah, in a First Alert 6 investigation, Mike McKnight tells us justice depends on how their complaint is viewed by law enforcement.
Two homeowners who alleged the same pool contractor left them high and dry.
He would have an excuse for everything. It rained today, or they can't deliver it today.
I had no doubt in my mind that we were both deceived.
But reading an arrest affidavit from Sarpy County, only one of them will see contractor Daniel Jacobson in criminal court.
Because he deceived me there to thinking that he had all this expensive equipment and everything paid for, ready to be delivered, and it wasn't.
Josh Endelicato has photos showing how the contractor left his pool about 2 years ago and allegedly didn't come back to finish. Josh had to hire another contractor to finish his pool, and he estimates that cost him $60,000 more. But he hopes prosecution against the first contractor might lead to some restitution.
Nice to meet you.
Sarpy County Sheriff's investigator Kevin Romes put together the case that led to the recent arrest of pool contractor Daniel Jacobson.
It didn't look like negligence to us, but instead it looked like he had purpose and intent to deceive you out of money. Not paying for the rock, not paying for the pool equipment.
And the investigator says good evidence comes from text messages between contractor and customer.
Thousands of messages here.
Yeah, it kind of just creates a timeline.
The same contractor left Greg Stolp with an unfinished pool that cost him $35,000 more to have someone else complete. Greg says he called Omaha police last summer, and the information report states he was advised it would be a civil matter.
I'm going to probably have to spend way more money than I already have to finish the pool, to hire an attorney and go through the hoops, especially when he's already filed for bankruptcy, and just trying to get anything out of him restitution-wise.
I talked to Douglas County Attorney Don Klein by phone.
Yeah, we'll take another look at to see if there's something that we can do about that and not just push it off as a civil matter.
Greg and Josh hired a reputable contractor known to rescue failed pool projects so their families can get relief in the hot weather. But losing thousands of dollars and many hours of sleep, both say it will be hard for them to cool down until they get justice in court.
Just trying to get anything out of him restitution-wise.
Near 170th and Harrison, Mike McKnight, First Alert 6.
The big expense was obviously the...
Now, Omaha police have a report showing the homeowner did call last summer, but the report states he was told it would be a civil matter. OPD will look into the reason why, and we'll update the story as we get new information. Daniel Jacobson, the pool contractor, is free after putting up $2,000 bond. He's back in court early next month.